Pleased to introduce tonight's speaker, Jaume Balsells. He was originally from Igualada, a small city near Barcelona, Spain, and he graduated with a PhD in chemistry. He moved to the United States to do a postdoctoral fellow at San Diego State University, and then later at the University of Pennsylvania in Philly. He started his professional career as a process chemist at Merck & Company in Rahway, New Jersey, and later at West Point. In 2019, he joined Johnson & Johnson, where he currently is the global head of discovery process research. He started collecting at age 12, initially building on his mother's collection and working part-time as a Philatelic retail store in his hometown. He collects Spanish stamps, postal history, mostly from the classic period. He also collects Greenland parcel post. He's a member of, amongst others, AFINET, the largest online Spanish Philatelic society, and the Greater Philatelic Stamp Collectors Club. He's published several articles in Philatelic journals and started exhibiting in 2022. So please join me in welcoming Mr. Balsells to our program. Dr. Sher, are you going to advance your own slides and everything?
I'm going to try to manage my own slides.
You do that? Okay. And do you want questions during or after?
Maybe let's hold the questions till the end.
Okay.
Just in case we are tight on time.
That sounds good.
Okay. So yeah, thanks, Paul, for the invitation and for the introduction. I'm going to be managing two screens on two separate computers. I have my camera on one, but I have my presentation on the other one. So if I don't look at the camera, know that I'm still looking at the slides and moving on. Paul and I started corresponding a few months ago after he read a short article that I published on the newsletter of the Greater Philadelphia Stamp Club about some of the philatelic issues of the Spanish Republic during the Civil War and some of the history behind it. After a few emails, he invited me to give this presentation and discussing topics. I'm not really specialized in the Spanish Civil War, but I have this I think pretty interesting story about the life of a soldier in the Spanish Civil War, 1936 to 1939. So we thought that this could be an interesting topic that mixes not just philately but also a life experience and a pretty traumatic period of history. So there we go. And like I said, I don't particularly collect this area, but how did I come about this collection? Well, I actually found it in my grandparents' attic, inside a suitcase that had been sitting there for probably the best part of 70 years. And these two folks that you see on the picture, these are the main characters of the story. This handsome-looking fella is my grandfather, and next to him is his girlfriend at the time. That eventually became my grandmother. So they were dating, in the mid 1930s. They were, both teenagers. I think he was 18 at this time. And I mentioned inside the suitcase. That's the suitcase actually that, according to my family's history, that he took with himself, when he was doing his military service and when he went to the war. So that's actually. It's not a Samsonite, as you can see, pure white pine and some rusty hinges. And inside of that suitcase, there were, several hundred letters between him and his parents or sister, and then also from his girlfriend to him. So I spent several years, sort of trying to bring order into the chaos and trying to reconstruct the history of the 3 years that he spent during the war, separated from home, from his family. And what I'm going to show you today is basically the result of this study, right? For just as a quick refresher of how the Spanish Civil War happened and how it evolved. It started in July of 1936, and it was basically the result of a failed military coup. So the army basically raised against the liberal progressive government, Republican government, democratically elected government, trying to take over the country. They were not successful in taking over the country, and that basically resulted in the start of a war. So the map that you see on the top left is from July of 1936, right after the start of the Civil War. The areas that you see in blue were at the time controlled by the rebels. The areas that you see in pink were the areas that the government was able to retain control of at the beginning of the conflict. Pretty important. The rebels were able to secure passage from Morocco, where most of the army was stationed, and more importantly, the best trained troops were stationed prior to the war. So in the initial phase, what they thought was, well, we'll bring those troops from Africa and try to move north, move towards the capital, Madrid, try to conquer the capital, and then the war will be over quickly. And that's what happened. Moving to the map on the top right, this is March of 1937. They succeeded in moving those troops north, but they did not succeed in taking the capital. So capital resistance at the capital was strong, and basically it remained in the hands of the Republican government throughout the rest of the war. The next phase of the war was, okay, now that since we're not able to take the capital, let's focus on different objectives. So they decided to go after the north, which was isolated from the rest of the country. So you can see here progress towards Bilbao and Gijón and Santander. These were areas of the country that were rich in industry and coal and iron refineries or steel refineries. So basically an important objective. That takes us to the third map on the bottom left. We're now in March, April of 1938. Basically, they decided to continue the divide and conquer strategy. So they push east to split the north with Barcelona and Catalunya, the most important industrial part of the country, from the southern part where the government had moved in the city of Valencia. Once the Republican zone was split in two, basically they started their last offensive into Catalonia between March of 38 and February of 39, where they basically finished taking the northeast corner. And the map shows a situation in February of 39. A month later, basically the Republican government surrendered and the war was finished. So the story that I'm going to tell focuses on this northeast corner of Barcelona and Catalunya. That's where my family's from. That's where my grandparents were born, and that's pretty much the area where he was stationed during action in this period. But the story starts a little bit earlier, before the war. We are in February of 1936, and as every other teenager in Spain at the time, there was a mandatory 2-year military service that every boy had to go through. And basically, he started early in 1936, and he was stationed in the island of Mallorca in the Mediterranean. That's the bigger of the 3 islands that you'll see in the map. And this is one of the first letters that I could pick up from the correspondence. So this is a letter from my grandmother addressed to him. His name was Ramon. So the letter sent from Igualada, as you can see, and sent to Palma de Mallorca. This is a picture of his, I guess, his friends in the army. This was inside of one of the letters that he was sending back home, and he's the one that you see on the very left of the picture, looking pretty sharp in that military uniform. I have no clue how they managed to, create their own personal stationery, but here it is. This is a letter that he sent. So this is basically the sender, infantry regiment in Palma. Letters going to his father, Miguel Padros, in Igualada. So standard, normal postage. This is from June of 1936. So this is about a month before the war started. Another picture, just getting some fresh air and exercise with with the rest of the infantrymen. And this is actually the last letter that I have in that there's in the correspondence from Palma de Mallorca. So this is middle of June, June 12th, 1936. And what I know from talking to my mom is that about a month before the war started, they sent a bunch of kids back home. They knew that something was coming up. They knew that there was going to be trouble. And, kind of that summer break, they're like, okay, everybody goes home and we'll see what happens. And eventually what happened is that a month later, July 17th, the army basically started this coup against the Spanish Republic. This is kind of a snapshot from a newspaper of July 18th. So this is like the morning after the rebellion or the coup had started, right? And I'll move next to this letter. This is a letter that my grandfather sent. He was back in home in Igualada, and he sent this letter to Palma de Mallorca. The letter was posted on July 18th, so the war had officially started that day. And if you notice, he was back in the pink zone, the area controlled by the government. But the letter was going to this island that is pictured or painted in blue. That means that the island had sided with the rebels. So they were now the enemy. So what happened with this letter is that obviously, they couldn't deliver it. So basically they put this marks in French, return to sender, and this D, which is Spanish for devolver or return, right? So basically the letter couldn't be delivered. It went back home. And obviously it's kind of a good example of, when the conflict starts, right? And interruption of the mail. So the next few months were probably pretty quiet for him. I mean, there was nothing to do. Everybody was trying to figure out what's going on. The Republican government obviously lost a lot of their military that sided with the rebels. So they started, plans for, how are we going to reconstruct this? How are we going to take control of the situation in the country? And, for the next, like I said, few months, probably until November or December, he was home, probably returned to his job until, we start seeing letters again. And here's another one. This is from December of 1936. It's posted in a city in the province of Barcelona. The city is Granollers. So this is close to the coast in not far from Barcelona. It's probably about 30-40 minutes from Barcelona. So what was going on here? See, he was basically drafted back into the Republican Army, and he was basically doing training again before being sent to the front. So while he was doing training, basically he was writing home, and there's a few letters in the correspondence that basically he just explains, how they were practicing and how they were shooting and all that stuff. You'll notice that there's no stamps here. The reason for that is that if you were a soldier in active duty, that basically you had the right to free mail. So what we see here is the normal postal date stamp from the post office, and then this square mark. It's basically it's just a mark from the army, right? It's I think it's the 2nd Regiment of the 2nd Division or something like that. Here's another one. This is from January of 1937. It's still sent from Granollers, so he was still training and basically getting ready to be sent from the front. And we also see this mark that basically it's from Correo, so it's mail. Franquicia means that it's free of postage, right? So we're at the end of January, and at that point, his unit got sent to the front, basically the front between Catalonia and the next region that you see painted in blue, which is called Aragon, the province of Aragon. So they were towards the north, near the city of Huesca. So This is a map from the area from the time in 1937. The city of Huesca is not far from the French border. It basically sided with the rebels, but the whole city was surrounded by the Republican militias, the Republican army. So what the map shows are basically the main roads, and the rebels were able to maintain connection with their side with this road that was going to the city of Jaca. So the dotted line is basically the Republican positions. The continuous black line is the rebels' position, the nationalist positions. We know that my grandfather was stationed near this little town called Banastas, and we know that because of the letters, obviously. So here's the first one. It's a letter that he sent back home, addressed to his parents. And interesting thing that it has is this postage mark. So again, no stamps because he was in active duty, so he had right to free mail. And basically, we see this. It says basically the column culture in action, red and black. Basically, it was an anarchist column, right? Here's another example. This is a postcard, actually. They really like postcards because they were very easily censored. You didn't have to open the envelope or anything. So they were giving this to the active soldiers for free, so they could write and send them back home. And we can see here that it was posted at Banastas, so it's that little town north of Huesca. Here's another one. This one was posted with a stamp, I guess, because they had a stamp, but it really didn't need a stamp. But it's an interesting example of use of a stamp that was not really necessary because this mark has franqueo, which means postage. So again, it was basically free mail for the soldiers. Here's another picture that was found in one of these letters. I assume that it's when he was stationed in the winter of 1937, probably February or March of 1937, north of Huesca. So again, we can see him on the left of the picture with his nice mustache. And as you can see, they were not really that organized. So you can see the lack of uniforms here. So these were more militias than a real regular army. Here's an example of a letter going from my grandmother to the front. So again, it's going to that part. Igris is a little town next to Banastas. Another letter sent from home. This is from March 30 of 1937. The reason I show this one is because this was sent at the rate of 30 centimes, which was basically first class letter up to 20 grams. And then we contrast this one with this other letter from the 1st of April, so just 2 days later. And you'll notice that the postage is now 45 cents. So what happened here? Obviously, the Republican government needed money, and one way to raise money was basically increasing postal rates. So first-class mail went up by 50%, so not insignificant, and it remained at this rate pretty much until the end of the war. Here's another example, same type of letter. It's the only one in this correspondence that has a commemorative stamp. All the other ones have just basic issues, right? Regular issues. All right, let's talk a little bit about the POM mail. So the POM, this was a political party. It was so POM is Partido Obrero Unificado Marxista, or Marxist Party of the Unified Worker, something like that. This party had a lot of importance, had a lot of power, especially in the area in Catalonia. It was, it was, really not agreeing with, the main lines of the government. Even though the government were socialists and communists, these guys were even more radical. These were Marxists, and they also sided with the anarchists. But one of the reason I'm bringing it up is one thing that this party organized was they organized a mail service to send mail from the cities in Catalonia to the soldiers that were stationed at the front, with the idea of, we care about the soldiers, we'll deliver the mail faster, we'll make sure that they get the letters, and etc. Right? So one day my grandmother went to the post office with a letter, saw somebody from this political party that convinced her to give him the letter, and basically the letter was delivered through this alternative service, right? Not the regular mail. How do we know about this? We know about this because he actually put it on a letter. So this is one of the letters. This is from June, and it says, I received your last letter from the 1st, and today I'm only writing a few lines, and I'm sending them through the poem. So it basically provides evidence that there was this alternative mail service, right? This is the first time that this has been identified and demonstrated, by the way. So it's one of the new findings. So this was the first letter that I have in this correspondence that was sent through this service. And like I said, she probably went to the post office with a letter with a stamp already on. But the person from that political party convinced her to give him the letter. They added this Red Cross charity label, and then basically the letter went on. But they added something else. They added this other political label on the back, and you can see it says basically, for the victims of fascism, red help of the poem. There's a couple other letters that look similar to this one. Here's another one. This one is from March 11 of 1937. This one has no stamps, and the rest of the letters from that went through the service have no stamps. This one has this nice postmark showing that it was sent from Igualada, and then on the back, again, we find another version of that label. This one is in perforated and red paper, and there's one other example that I'll show you, which is this one. And that's kind of the three labels put together. We believe that these labels were most likely printed in the city of Igualada and only used for a very, very short period of time, probably no more than February and March of 1937. There are a few other letters that I have that are sent also by the poem mail during April and May. But they don't have these labels anymore. And the ones that you see here, these are all the ones that are known. So these three examples, these are my 1 cent magentas. The white one is the only one that we know exists, and the red one, these are the two examples that we know exist. And I haven't seen any other ones in the 20+ years that I've been following the best auctions of this material. And talking with the specialized dealers in Spanish Civil War. I said there's different labels in later letters. So this one is from April 30th of 1937, and you'll see that the label in the back is now changed, and it has this this other red help, let's say, label. These ones were printed in Barcelona. These are a lot more common. And you can find them, pretty easily. They're very, very hard to find on cover. And in this correspondence, there's maybe like 4 or 5 of them. So there's really not that many. Here's another one, the last one that I'll show. I like this one because it shows, on top of the label, they added this this little piece of paper that indicated the town where it was supposed to be going, right? So the letter was addressed to the unit, but then somebody had to figure out, where is this unit station so that I can send it to that town, and that's how they probably did it. Here's another picture. This one is a little bit rusty. My grandfather is the one at the back row on the left with his school hat. This is probably from the spring or early summer of 1937. You can see that at this point, you know, the uniforms, I guess, had arrived. The militias had been disbanded and incorporated into the Republican Army. So this was turning more into a fighting unit rather than just you know, a bunch of volunteer people, you know, that were helping the Republic, right? All right, I'll make another pause here from covers to talk a little bit about Catiorna. She was actually a photographer that basically reported during the Civil War. She was originally from upper middle class Jewish family from Hungary. She was born in Budapest in 1912, studied in Germany, and then eventually met the person that later was known as Robert Capa, a famous photographer. I'm sure that you all heard about him. They had a relationship. They came together to Spain to report on the war. And she worked for a journal in Barcelona during 1937 and until the end of the war. The reason I bring her up is because, you know, I found out that she actually went through different places in Spain, but during the time that my grandfather was in the area of Huesca, she was actually there taking pictures. So I was able to find some of those pictures, and I think that it's always good to, you know, put a little bit of images to just the letters and the history, right? And you know, be able to see what the landscape looked like, what the people looked like, and etc. One of my favorites is this one. This soldier, I guess, taking a break and writing a letter home in the middle of this barren landscape. There really was not much over there, and it still looks a little bit like that if you ever are curious and travel to Spain. After the war, she moved to France, and before France was invaded, she was able to seek refuge in Mexico and live the rest of her life in Mexico. Somebody that, you know, had a really interesting life. I'm pretty sure that somebody's thinking about making a movie at some point. All right, let's keep going with the mail. So this letter is from May of 1937, and again we see, you know, it's a mail from the front going back to his parents in Igualada. We see basically the free postage mark, but now we see this additional mark here. So what happened? What happened was that at the beginning of May, the government decided that they could no longer sustain the benefit of free mail for basically active duty military. So basically, beginning of May, they were required to pay postage. This letter was basically taxed upon arrival. It was postage was probably paid in cash once it was delivered. And from now on, we're going to start seeing some stamps on the letters that are coming from the front. This is another one from just a few days later, May 22nd, and we can see this nice combination of, you know, this bisect stamp to make the correct rate of 45 cents. Not a postal cancel. They're still using that military cancel that they were using for free mail up until now. So this brings us to the summer of 1937, and at that point, my grandfather had been at the front probably for about 5 months-ish. And at that point, he was relieved and sent back home. We know that he spent most of the summer in Barcelona. The picture you see here is another picture by Catiorna. This is one of the main squares in the center of Barcelona. And then this rat that you see here being paraded in the city, this is General Franco. So obviously, you know, not somebody that was loved in that part of the country. But, you know, my grandfather spent the summer there and took advantage of that time to basically study as a mechanic for trucks and as a driver. And, you know, during this period of time, there's a couple of letters that he sends back home. So this is one. it's really just a piece of paper that is folded and kind of held together by the stamps. The stamps are ripped because that's the way to open it. And he was writing to my grandmother in this letter, basically telling her that he had taken the exam as a mechanic, and that he had passed the exam, and that hopefully he would now be able to take a role as a truck driver or truck mechanic as he went back into active service, right? There's another letter to his parents, pretty much from the same time that he was in Barcelona, telling them that he's going back to the front, and that he will stop home to visit for the weekend or something like that. So at that point, he got, I guess, really, really fortunate that that they needed people that were able to drive and were able to fix trucks, and basically that's what he did during the rest of the war. So he was, as far as I know, he was not in combat anymore beyond that. So he was incorporated in the 32nd Division. This was a relief division that was not really in combat. And he spent the time between September of 37 until the end of the war, basically driving trucks with supplies and troops between the cities and the front, right? So I tried to reconstruct with this map, sort of all the areas that I've been talking about, and that I'll be talking about moving forward. So this is, you can see the city of Barcelona. Igualada is about 35 to 40 miles west of Barcelona. And as I mentioned, at the beginning of the war, he was stationed near Huesca and the town of Banastas and Igries. And then as he reincorporated in the fall of 37, we're going to see him all over the place because he was driving to wherever material were needed. So some of the letters are sent from all of the cities that you see highlighted in yellow, right? So Sástago, Caspe, Sariñena, Poleñino, Monzón, and then as Franco's army started invading or advancing into Catalonia, obviously you see letters that are sent from cities that are closer, from Lleida, from Pons, etc. So I can go a little quicker here because we're just going to go through the mail, but you've seen the story. This is basically a partially paid postcard. So the rate of 15 cents was before the rates were raised. After the rates were raised, the postcard rate went to 25. So this needed an extra 10 cents of postage. Here's a couple other examples of use of bisects. This is not philatelic by any stretch of the imagination. This is purely due to the lack of stamps to pay the correct rate of 45 cents. So we see this very, very commonly in many cities, particularly in the Republican side, where scarcity was becoming a thing, right? So this one is sent by my grandfather, so from the front to his parents in Igualada, but we see letters that are going in the other direction. So these two were sent on different dates from Igualada basically to the front. And we can see, kind of the same. It wasn't always the case that you couldn't make the right postage. So here we have another letter with the correct rate of 45 cents, 40 cent and a 5 cent. This is also this is already in 1938. So this is from February 3rd. At this point, Franco's armies have already advanced into the north of Valencia, into the province of Castellón, and basically split the Republican zone into two. So Catalonia is now isolated from the rest of the Republican side. There's another postcard where we see the censor mark. Postcards, because they were easy to censor in order to encourage that soldiers use postcards, these remain free throughout the rest of the war. So they were not for active military, not if you were sending it, to the front. And a few other letters. This is from July of 1938. Another one from July 1938, and we can see that, depending on where they are and who's handling the letter, the postmarks can vary quite substantially. And I'll show a couple more. These are two of my favorites. These were sent by my grandfather. This one is sent to her sister. And basically we see this, you know, I don't know if I can call this a cachet, but basically it's just hand-drawn, this allegory of the Republic with a Republican flag in the background. And this one a little bit more festive. He really liked to fish. That was one of his favorite. Fishing and photography were his two hobbies. So this obviously resonates with me. I went fishing with him a few times. This letter was sent in August of 38. So at this point, Franco's army was already advancing into Catalonia. So this was sent from the small town of Pons, which is inside Catalonia. So obviously, you know, they were pushing, you know, further and further away as the end of the war was approaching, right? So letters that have shown up until here are all between my grandfather and his family, but there are a few other letters that are sent between soldiers or between friends that were fighting in different areas. So I wanted to show a couple of examples of that. This one was from a friend that was in a different brigade. It's the mixed brigade 146. I've been able to research that at this point in time, this is November of 37, this brigade was stationed north of Valencia. So they were probably a couple 100 kilometers from where my grandfather was stationed. So it was quiet in the front and during this period of time. This is from January of 1938, and this is pretty much around the time that Franco's army started the advance on towards the Mediterranean, right? So we have so the one from January is when basically that offensive started. This one from May is when the 146th Brigade was already in retreat. So you know they were in the south of Catalonia. It's interesting how they use, you know, sort of a mute postmark in this case. So you know, unclear why or what happened to the older postmarks. We see a couple other examples and postcards that were sent from the front. And I think we're pretty much going to the end. So yeah, February of 1939, basically the you know, conquest of Catalonia was completed. This resulted in approximately 400,000 refugees from that part of the country, between civilians and military, that you know ended up having to cross the border into France, and were basically sent to, you know, concentration camps in different parts, mostly in the south of France. We know that that's what happened to him, but we don't know exactly where he ended up. I don't know if there might be a way to find out. But I wanted to show this letter. This is the last letter in the correspondence. And it's not from him. So this letter is sent from one of these concentration camps in France. The cancel is here. The train, I can recognize a French cancel. I'll tell you that this one is from the concentration camp of Sept-Fons, one of the bigger ones. And what happened at the time, this was in the spring of 1939. So they knew that my grandfather had to basically cross the border into France. They were trying to locate him, and they found somebody from Igualada that was at this camp of Sept-Fons. So this letter is sent from that person, and basically it's telling them that he hasn't seen my grandfather, that there's nobody else in that camp from Igualada, and that if he can find something out, that he would get in touch. Obviously, you know, these were refugees, so this poor fellow probably didn't have much money. So the letter was sent from France unpaid, and obviously it was taxed in Spain with 1.4 pesetas on arrival that basically my grandmother had to pay. So that's the end of the correspondence, but I'll tell you how the story ends. So I already mentioned he went into one of these concentration camps. If you read about it, this were not like the Nazi death camps. Let's not jump into extremes, but conditions in this concentration camps were really dismal, were really appalling. We know that after some weeks or potentially months, he managed to escape and basically made his way into the tiny country of Andorra. Some of you may be familiar with it. It's this little independent country that's in between France and Spain. The northern half borders France, the southern half borders Spain. Because of his training as a truck mechanic, he was able to find work there and was in Andorra for probably close to a year. Eventually, his family were able to locate him, and by mediation of a local priest from Igualada, they were able to secure his return back home. So once he was home, they were able to get married. And when things looked like they were going back to normal, obviously under a new regime, one day a group of soldiers, a group of military shows up at his door and basically told him that he was arrested for being a deserter because he was doing his military service in Mallorca and he never returned to service. So he was sent to Mallorca. He had to go basically a military trial, but fortunately, because some of the officers that knew him from the ones that had spent there spoke on his behalf, he was acquitted, and basically he was allowed to return home. Right? He had not been like really politically active or anything. It was just one of those people that get caught in the war, and basically you have to do what you're told, right? But that's how life resumed for him, and I just want to share a couple of pictures to close this up. This is from 1941. This is the year that my mom was born, so they had been married for maybe a year here. 1974, this little fellow in the picture, that's me when I was 4 years old. So eating my birthday cake, I guess, with my grandparents. This is a picture that I took of them in 1982 when they lend me every once in a while. And this one from 2003, this is the last picture that I had from him. This was the day I got married. I was really fortunate that he could be a part of it, and unfortunately he passed away just a few months after this picture was taken. But we have great memories, and now a legacy with this correspondence that has allowed me to reconstruct this pretty significant part of his life and the history of Spain as well. And that's how we wrap it up. Thank you so much for being here and listening to the story, and I'll be happy to take any questions.
Questions, folks?
Hi, one thing that I find interesting is that it looks like the mail got through even between different parts, between opposing sides. I wonder if you have any comments on that. Was that normal, or was there sabotage trying to prevent the mail from going through in order to demoralize the other side? Do you know anything about that?
So maybe I wasn't clear, but that's really not the case. So mail between the two opposing sides was not circulating. That was not possible.
Okay.
We know that that there were ways of communicating in between the two zones, but basically that was through using middlemen, primarily in the south of France, right? So and some of these you could even call espionage actions, right? Where, you know, people were, you know, trying to send information about, you know, troop positions, you know, troop movements in the background, and things like that, right? Others were just, you know, trying to locate family members. Of course, you can imagine that a lot of families got, you know, separated during this period, right? But no, there was, you know, mail between the two opposing sides was not possible. One had to be creative in order to get that.
So when he was in Andorra, what prevented him from going back to Spain? Was there any kind of, you know, he stayed a year in Andorra. Why did he stay there a year?
Because you needed a visa to you needed some, you know, the borders were closed, right? So you needed some authorization. So somebody had to kind of speak on your behalf, go to the military, police, or authorities, whoever was in charge, right, and say, okay, this person is allowed to return to their home, to their family, right?
Thank you. Very interesting.
Question, what was the reason they were moved to France? When a good percentage were Spanish.
What was the reason they moved to France?
Right.
Well,
I mean,
because
they're not
that was
French.
the only option, pretty much, right? I mean, there was no other way of escaping, you know, the enemy, I guess.
Oh, okay. Well,
Yeah, especially if you know, people that had been involved politically with the Republican government, they feared that, you know, they were going to be executed, or they were going to be court-martialed, or you know they feared, you know, for their lives, right? That's why they crossed the border and escaped, right?
Okay. Now,
And you see a lot of, you know, former Republican politicians, party leaders, etc., that, you know, from France, obviously they had to, you know, find other places to go. So a lot of them ended up in Mexico.
mhm.
Oh.
So, well, I mean, so if I can understand this, they escaped from Catalonia to France, and the
Correct.
French set up, and they were basically refugees.
Correct.
And so they were refugee camps rather than prison camps.
So,
Kind
you know, depending on how you read it, or where you read it, you're gonna see a description of refugee camps. I deliberately use the word concentration camps because
Okay.
of how people were treated in those places. I read some literature about
Okay.
it. So
Okay.
again,
Okay.
I don't get this, you know, people were not tortured, people were not killed.
Mhm.
This were
Yeah.
not, you know, this was before World War II and all of that, right? But this were not, you know, France did not want these refugees, right?
Yeah. Okay.
Were in your letters, I saw some of the labels, the Cinderellas, you know, the anti-fascists and things. Were a lot of I have a bunch of them. I think they're very interesting to
Yeah.
have. Were they used a lot in general, or were they just fundraisers for around the world from the outside?
So in the Republican zone, most of them are what I would call charity labels. So they're not like, you know, their use is optional, right? And the majority of them were, you know, created as fundraisers. You could put them on letters and stuff, but they're philatelic, right? They're not. Now, when you're talking about the nationalist zone, a lot of there are still some charity labels, but in a lot of areas, and a lot of towns, and a lot of regions, they created these local taxes that were paid through stamps. So, you know, in some areas their use was mandatory. It was a postal tax, right? So I would call those revenues really local revenues. I think that's the best way to describe them. Now, differentiating one from another, it's not that simple. I'll give you that.
Yeah, thank you. Other questions, folks? Yeah, Stephen.
Short question. I got a little bit confused at the very beginning. Which government was in charge of Spain before the war? Was it the Republicans or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, Spain was a monarchy up until 1931. There was a national election in 1931, in April of 1931, where a coalition of left-leaning parties won, socialists and communists primarily. Basically, that resulted in the King of Spain leaving the country, and he went into exile in Rome, and basically the monarchy was abolished. That started the Second Republic from April of 1931 until the end of the war in March of 1939. So they changed the flag. They removed the bottom red stripe from the national flag, and they basically painted it purple. So that was the Republican flag. And yeah, I mean, it basically the right-leaning parties and the military are the ones that raced against the Republican government.
The letters were they written in Catalan?
Yes, everything's written in Catalan. That's my language. That's what my family has always spoken. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, we speak Spanish as well. But everything's in Catalan, yes.
Was the situation in Portugal somewhat similar? Because they had Dr. Salazar, who was kind of a fascist dictator.
Right. So Portugal's government was aligned with Franco's nationalists, right? They were right-leaning military government, etc. So they got support, just as well as they got support from Hitler's Germany and Mussolini's Italy, right? And you'll read about and the Republican government got support from Stalin's Russia, right? So that's political similarities basically provided support.
And unfortunately, your grandfather got stuck in the middle of that.
That's right.
Yeah. Okay, folks, other questions we have or comments?
Oh, that was very interesting.
Yes, we will give you the PLC. Many thanks. Very, very good. We always enjoy that. But we usually do, we take a few minutes for members to do show and tell. So if you would love to have you stay for that. As I mentioned in my email, if you have something you want to show, feel free to join. But who has something to show? What do we have tonight? We missed Charlie. He always had something. I got a couple things, but I want to save those. No? Okay, well, I will do mine. Let's see. Can you see him?
Yep.
Good. Okay. I'll start with this. Mike, you like this. This is the first Prince Charles red pillar box.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
Yep,
I heard that we're starting to roll them out.
Yes. I'm surprised they still even have these mailboxes at work, but yes,
no.
This is a very small town there, and you can see it's Royal Mail in the background, but it's nice. I'm glad to see the tradition being kept up. From what I hear, he's not that interested in the Royal Collection. I guess I'm assuming that the Royal Collection will remain there, but I don't think there's going to be a lot of activity, to update it, add things or whatever. So, but yeah, that's very, very attractive. And this is a interesting philatelic item. I will show it up this way.
I'm sorry, this is Eric.
Yes.
Levine. Going back to your pillar box.
Mhm.
He pared down all of his royal sponsorships, if you will.
Okay.
But the one that he did keep was the Royal Philatelic Society of London.
Okay.
So
Well,
maybe. If not, I'll take the collection.
yeah. I'll tell you though, I think, it's so unfortunate, between his health and his daughter-in-law's health, it really
Right.
just put a real crush, on the monarchy, just as it was getting started in a new administration or new reign. Yeah.
Mm.
But I'm glad that he's keeping the Royal Society. I mean, I don't
Yeah.
think he can do that much himself. He has people to do it. I'm hoping
Right.
that he'll continue to have a royal keeper of that. And if they won't afford it, I'm assuming somebody would even volunteer, But we'll
Yeah, I
have to
could find the time.
Yes. Yeah. This is the philatelic item. It's a Schleswig plebiscite from Flensburg, 3 March 1920. And let's look at it. But you can see it's from a Briefmarkenhandlung, which is a stamp dealer from
Yeah.
Cologne on Rhine. And it's right on the, like, what's it? I would say plaza of the Dome Cologne, the beautiful Cologne.
Cathedral.
Yeah. And like our friend Larry in California, he always shows a picture of it. I don't have that here, but I did look it up, and you from that building, from right here, you could hit, if you have a good arm, with a cricket ball, you could hit the cathedral. And what a place to have a stamp business, all the people coming back and forth and so forth. But we'll just take a quick brief look at this. They call it the Schleswig-Holstein question. And if you ever remember being with your family when you were younger, you'd hear your parents or other family members say, "What are we going to do about Uncle Bill? I don't know." Well, it's the same thing. The Schleswig-Holstein question. What are we going to do about it? The history of this area goes back, to 500-600, about back and forth. And I thought I would get my handle on it today, and I gave up. I guess I defer to Lord Palmerston, which he quipped, "The Schleswig-Holstein question is so complicated, only 3 men in Europe have ever understood it." Now, he was prime minister about that time when there was the Denmark and Germany issue, or the Germans or Prussia issue. So it was around 1863. So of these 3, one was Prince Albert, who died. The second one was a German professor who has become mad. I'm the third, and I've forgotten all about it. I'll tell you, it's gotten just as exciting even in the last 150 years. But the history is complicated, the geography is complicated. But basically, Germany is down in here. This area has gone back and forth with Germany and Denmark. World War I ended with the Versailles Conference, and all of Schleswig went to Denmark. So we'll back up just a little bit. Here's Holstein. Well, this is a modern day map. We'll just call this northern Schleswig, southern Schleswig. Actually, there's a central Schleswig and then a southern. And there had been several wars. I think the one in 1864 ended with all of this going to Germany. So Denmark started here. Copenhagen is about over here on that second island. And then after the war, World War I, with Versailles Conference, they gave Denmark back this and this. And there was a lot of issues with the King of Denmark being involved versus the president or prime minister. He thought really it should be a plebiscite. What is a plebiscite? Largely, it's a vote of the people who were there. So this was done in Versailles, 1919, and then so within a year, there's a little bit of grumbling because you had mostly Danes and some Germans, mostly Germans and some Danes. So what they did was they had this vote on February 10th, 1920, which is very political. Now the north area here went 75% for Denmark, The central area here went 90% for Germany, and they left southern Schleswig alone because that was all German, and that really didn't count in it. And it stayed like that until World War II. As you know, Germany's invasion of Denmark was kind of like the Glorious Revolution, which Mike could tell us about. It was pretty quiet, and it wasn't difficult living for the Danes unless you're Jewish, and then that was a different thing. And there's a lot of interesting stories how a lot of the dentists in Denmark saved their powdered cocaine, and they put them on the decks of the ships, which smuggled the Jewish people out to Sweden. And as a dog, the human sending dogs, they couldn't find them because their nose was desensitized, and that's how a lot of people got out. But it turned out that so during World War II, Germany took this back. Then after World War II, the UN resets it, the north part to Denmark again, and the southern part stayed with Germany, and it's been that way ever since. So as we go back to the cover, you can see that a set was put out from 1 to 10 in the pfennigs, the pennies, and then 1 to 5 and 10 mark stamps, which were the very high value stamps. It's obviously a philatelic one. He is a stamp collector, and with all that postage on there, he's able to put on a registration. I do not believe it went through the mail as is, but the way the stamps are placed and the way you can look at these folds, it folds very nicely to fit into an envelope for mailing out to this guy's cousins or his customers. That's my thinking. I looked this up today. I just came across this on Friday, but I thought it was interesting enough to share what these things are worth. It doesn't seem there's that much to them, but some have a few $100 for a cover like this. And I think what the differences are the extensive one, which are not many, were mailed on February 10th, which made it the day of the plebiscite. And this was March 3rd. So this was, 3 weeks after the plebiscite in 1920. So again, this my preliminary research says that's probably why it isn't that valuable a one. But it's an interesting one. From my past blabbering, I enjoy philatelic covers. I think they're attractive. Certainly this one is with a full set there. The sets aren't that expensive. There is another set in same looking stamp, but with Danish denomination in ore and krona. And those a little bit more expensive. Some are like this, but they have zone 1 in it, an overprint, and they are a little bit more expensive. So I'll try to get the time and sort them out and see if I can really figure it out. It will be a little bit easier than understanding the history of Schleswig-Holstein if I can figure out these different stamps. So that is that one, and I will stop sharing unless anybody has any questions. Okay, that's good. Now, folks, it's your turn. What do you have? Smil, you always have something to show.
Not today, really. I am
Oh,
outside
okay.
of my natural habitat. So,
Okay.
but next time I will have something to show for sure.
All right. Well, I have a question for Eric. Eric, are you the FDR collector or is that Greg? Can't hear you. Yep.
Okay, how is that?
Yep. Are
Okay.
you the
So I was
I was thinking if it was you last night, but it's probably Greg.
No, I was the guy that acquired the Ickes National Park stamps that were gummed.
Okay.
The original. I think you were on the call.
Gotcha.
I just acquired the very first generation of the park stamps.
Okay. Well, would you like that Guatemala stamp, the FDR souvenir sheet?
Yeah. Oh, I do collect FDR stamps.
Yeah, I'll send that to you, and I'll send one to Greg. Okay.
All right.
Good.
Thank you.
That's settled. Other things, any other announcements for the good of the society? Boy, you're a tough audience tonight. What are we gonna do? But yeah, I got to admit again, Jaume, I want to thank you so much for a wonderful presentation. The fact that it's your family and that he lived through it and that you got to see him. Did he ever talk about it when you were a kid?
No,
Or
never.
Yeah.
my grew up, probably many here, we grew up, you know, our dads were in the World War II era and stuff. And we found the ones who were in combat didn't talk about it. The ones who were not in combat did talk about their experience. You know, there's a difference. And I think that's,
Yeah.
And I heard the same story multiple times from multiple people, right? That this experiences are not something that folks want to share. And it was the case for him as well.
well, you had family against family, town
In
against
some
town.
cases, yeah. Some
You
cases,
know, and you didn't know what town was going to be where, what front they were going to be in. I mean, I've seen those maps, and I think that was great that you had those maps to show the period. And I've seen other sets that make that look simple, where they go into all these little conclaves. It's yeah, what a horrible experience. And most people didn't want it; they just want to be left alone.
Yep.
Yeah.
True of all wars.
Yeah. Well, we do enjoy
I
you.
think
You know? Yes,
Yeah.
Mike.
Thank you so much for sharing
you're welcome.
and for being up so late.
Yes. Well, very good. Well, thank you. I guess we'll end the formal meeting, and thank you, Susan. We can turn that off, and we'll have this eventually on our recording. I think you said you gave us permission. We'll put the recording
absolutely.
on,
Yeah.
and we'll be in good shape for that. And hopefully you can get out to one of our meetings sometime when you're back in Philly, or we can get downtown, because we have a lot of good friends in that club, and that's really what a lot of the collecting is all about. So thank
That'd be
you
great.
all very
Yeah.
much. Yep. Okay, folks. See you next time.
Bye.
So
Good night.
night.